Hello, welcome to the Raquel vision, which is really a vision God gave me. It's simple, consisting of 5 letters, Rakel. And today, the last day of spring, I am doing L for land. We started with R for remembrance, A for aesthetics, K for kinetics, E for energy, and L for land. If you're watching this with any interest at all, you probably have an idea already of what it is. But in the spring of last year, 2024, God was giving me a vision of just kind of how to better look at life and how to truly leverage or kind of just a better understanding of what our minds are capable of. And that's the anchor of it, which is our remembrance. And then everyone after that is kind of how we remember, the power of remembering. And not just recalling memories from the past, but remembering as far as how we put together every aspect of our understanding to make better understandings. And ultimately how God is the giver of that gift of remembrance and how we can use it to remember who we are in Him. And there's so much I could say about this, and there's so much I have wanted to say about these over this past year. Because now here we are in spring, the last day of spring, 2025. It's been an interesting year though, and I am going to actually record a reflection today and post it on my personal channel. But here we are at L, which stands for land, and how the Holy Spirit sort of gave me the perspective on land is remembering the rich livelihood of environments and locales. So sort of how we use our understanding, our minds, which is a part of our soul, to sort of navigate the collections of data or whatever on locales, meaning places, and environments, places, land, everything that sits on land. A city is on land. A home is on land. That's an environment, a nation. And for the most part, we have the best idea of the land that we've experienced firsthand ourselves, but we still have an overall view of the entire world. We all do, of all the land around the world. Even if you don't have an opinion about every single country, every single city, you may not even know every single culture. Nobody does, but it goes beyond the land that we've experienced, right? And I have it written down as land being this planet that sustains the human story, where the whole human story is playing out. And at the core of this land, which is Earth, burns the untouchable and wholly integral reflection of our sun. At the core of the earth, we have the core of this land, we have something that almost reflects the thing beyond this land that sustains it from a day-to-day basis. Like life here is wholly dependent on the sun, wholly evolving around the sun, centered at the sun with a sun-like core of heat at its center, right? The air, the waters, the vegetations, the scapes of this land offer a delicate and complex, offers all the actual delicate, intricate, complex elements of humanity. The only life we really know of in our universe is on this planet, on this land, in these waters, these skies. And, science labors to discover, explore, understand this land and the life on it. That is L for land. Now, we think of land, like I said, as cities, countries, regions. We think of land as dirt, what can come out of it, It is a matter of like ownership. So there's which is in its own complexity. To own land is one of the more higher aspirations of human success, right? To have property, which has to be on land. And then who can truly own land is the cause of human conflict, which is why we get wars, invasions, taking land. Who has a right? Who has a right to claim land? So the structures we put together as humans to manage the land, it holds great weight in how we function, and we know it. We know it. We all know it, even if we don't always directly consciously acknowledge it. Some people are more in tune with it, more aware of it, especially those who work in things that pertain to it, like archaeologists, geographers, those who are trying to find their place in it in terms of ownership or moving from one area on this planet to another. Everything we do as humans is playing out on the stage of Earth. And God made it as a place that we as humans are supposed to have dominion over it. And dominion as in not what we're doing now, which is just making a mess of it. Truly, as beautiful as the planet is, the worst thing that's happening to it is the things that we're doing as human beings. And that's another reflection of our fallen state. As humans, we've fallen from the magnitude of what we were made to be. God invites us back into him to establish his kingdom on earth, which looks like what he wanted. And the whole story will play out. The Lord will come back. Yahweh will carry humanity into another phase of our story where this is all wrapped up. One day there will be no more human beings even born. It'll be not the end in terms of global warming destroying the planet or an apocalyptic asteroid or anything like that, but we'll be in him. The family will at some point be complete. Humanity will reach its peak and we'll be in him, or we'll be apart from him, and that will be the summation of it. And those in him will experience dominion and walking in rulership the way he designed. Family won't look the same. Like I said, there'll be no more babies and all of that, but we'll live in perpetuity in a relationship with, if my understanding is, which I need to do a reflection on, in relation to even this earth, that there will be a new earth, that he would come to this land and set it in order. And one way or another, he's going to set our relationship with humans to the earth in order by bringing the human story to its summation. Bringing the story of death and hell to a summation. And it can sound ridiculous. It can sound bigger than it sounds. Honestly, is where a lot of our science fiction is derived from in the first place. A lot of our fantasy fiction and stuff is derived from this idea of there being more to our human story, or it having different phases or different elements and all that. Because at our core as humans, we know there's more, but we live in such a fallen state that in our creativity, we can only interpret it the best way we can, or we come up with in our imagination how we imagine it could be, and all these things, and things that we know are fictional. And the saddest part is sometimes the story that God has told us is going to play out can sound fictional, because it may look more like those fantastical ideas we came up in our imagination than what we're actually seeing play out. And it's one of the saddest things, because if you really look at his word and then you really learn to hear from him, you really actually begin to see how our day-to-day reality that we understand actually echoes and even confirms and points back to the bigger picture that he's laying out for us in his scripture, and that he lays out for us in conversation with us, and he lays out for us in expression through the Holy Spirit. And that's what comes to mind when it comes to land. My goal, now that I've sort of finished with this, right? I can admit that when I had this vision initially, and when I knew I would just go on YouTube and do it, it was so vibrant back in March last year. I remember it just felt like it was being downloaded to me. And there were certain aspects of it. I could see the posts, I could see the conversations, and I even had some momentum and traction, because I was kind of paying more attention to certain things on YouTube, and I felt confident that the Lord would use me to start a conversation. And that's what I really saw coming from this, was these bigger conversations that could talk about who we are, how we function, and why we're here, in a way that could get away from kind of the confines of a lot of the religious traditions of how we've sort of put Jesus in these different boxes, denominational boxes and cultural boxes. And it was after March last year, really in April kind of is when it started, that I started to experience some mental, emotional declines like I've never experienced in my life. Never experienced in my life. And even just posting these videos is not as what 5 of them, right? Became so difficult because as I was posting them, I felt like my life was falling apart, even pertaining to things that I was discussing, like aesthetics. Things didn't even look beautiful to me. I was experiencing a type of and I talk about this on my personal channel, but I was experiencing some of the ugliest things in my life. I felt ugly. I never felt ugly before. I didn't understand how to express aesthetics. I didn't feel inspired. I couldn't see and admire the way things looked. It was such a strange type of anguish that was really fighting to shape how I see and understand the world. And so to even do aesthetics at the end of summer, which was in September, this would be after I had spent 2 stints in the hospital, had to do a day program, lost one of the job I had at the time. My car was stolen. My health was just slipping away. My personal relationships felt weakened, like they just felt thin and fragile. My sense of faith was like just blown up to where I have still believed, but I had to really fight to hold on to. It was rough. It was rough. My dog, I had to give up my dog. My living space changed. I found myself unable to function in some basic ways, and then I cut my hair. I had let's think specifically about hair and aesthetics, right? I had locks previously, and I found out 20 23, I realized that the loctician who reattached my old locks in the back had used some human hair, which was something I was devastated to find out, because I was dead set against ever having anybody else's hair on my scalp again. That was one of the main reasons why I wanted locks, and I had been getting locked up since 2012, 2013, and 2012, and I had, these were my values. These were my strongly held beliefs, decisions. And so to find that she had woven up human hair and some of my locks in the back, I just cut all my locks off in 2023. And so in 2024, I decided I would do wigs. And I was so excited about that. I had did the parts myself. I was going to use some of my old locks that didn't have any human hair in them. I was already making the wigs. I was working on that last summer, and I had attached them. I had the parts out. I felt good about it, especially since and this is going to sound a little complex, but I want to give a frame of mind of where I was and what made doing these videos particularly difficult, and how it played out almost the exact opposite of what I feel like God had showed me in March. So I had these wigs, and I was really excited about them. And one particular reason I was especially excited is because the hair on like the crown, or just the top, sort of in the back of my head, just does not grow at the same rate as the rest of my hair. It grows slow. It's particularly coarse and fragile, and it's a little bit thin. And but it grows, because it's been like this for over 10 years. So it's not like some recent thing that happens. This is just, I don't think I'm balding in that area. At some point in my young life, that part of my head got stressed or whatever. I don't know, but that's just the way it grows. And I never want to straighten my hair again since like 2012, 2013, when I first got locks. So straightening my hair wasn't an option. Keeping my hair in braids was never going to happen. I loved having locks. I was so devastated to have to cut those locks off when I found the human hair wrapped up. I just didn't even want that woman's work still attached to my scalp. So I cut all those off, but I was going to use some of the ones to do the wigs, and that's what I did. And having the wigs already made and attached to my hair, because you can attach locks and wigs, I knew that I wouldn't have to wait for a wig to grow out in that area, for it to grow slower, or to, kind of develop slower than the rest of my head, because the hair on the very back of my head grows very, very quickly. Right now, like, it's long compared to the rest of my head. And like, I'm not a salon person who would just be in a salon constantly getting haircuts, especially since I'm not straightening my hair anyway. So either it's going to be me keeping my hair cut really, really short, like in a taper or a fro of some sort, or I can keep a natural style but go and get it cut but maintain it. But that's never been my relationship with my hair, really, especially after I decided I wasn't straightening it anymore. So I got these wigs, right? When I went to the hospital the first time, I was able to wear a hair bonnet to protect it. My dad brought me a bonnet. He visited me, which I was so happy to see him. Just depressed, being put on drugs, feeling like the doctors weren't listening to me. I was happy to see my dad while I was an inpatient at this mental health hospital, and I was able to wear a bonnet. Through some health things and continued worsening depression and being over medicated and trying to get hormone treatment for my period and not being able to sleep, I ended up slipping into a deeper depression, just feeling very suicidal. Ended up back in the hospital a month later, in August. And then they wouldn't let me put anything. They wouldn't let me wear a bonnet of any sort. And my wigs were, they required a level of maintenance to continue to sort of get them to dread and lock up. They weren't completely formed. And there was really nothing I could do to care for them in this hospital. I couldn't wear a bonnet, and I was already struggling to even just deal with anything. My hormones were so out of whack that I was bleeding for 3 weeks straight. So my hair sort of became an afterthought. But while I was there at the hospital the second time, and I could just see my hair every time I looked in the mirror, every time I walked past a window or saw my reflection, it just was a strong sense of disappointment that my hair was just exposed in its sort of unfinished state. And the experience I had in the hospital was so bad that second time in August. It was so traumatic. Nobody could visit me. The doctors were horrific, they were harsh. My doctor was saying racist things about my outside psychiatrist. It was strange. They were both Middle Eastern or Indian Asian. My doctor in Stonecrest, who was just switching out all my medication, switching out my blood pressure medicine that had nothing to do with my mental health. It was a nightmare. He was saying racial things about my psychiatrist outside of it because he saw that he was Asian Indian and he wore some type of head wrap. It was the strangest thing to experience. It was so traumatic, and I had no clue when I would go home. Some days the phones wouldn't work. There were no visitors. You couldn't go outside, and this was for 9 days. And I couldn't cover my hair. For the last 4 days, I would use a t-shirt after they gave me some extra clothes, like they give you some clothes in addition to whatever you had on when you got there. I would use a t-shirt to sort of maybe cover it up or something like that. Because I wasn't necessarily ashamed of it as much as I was disappointed in where it was. And the experience was so traumatic that by the time I got out of that hospital on that 9th day, I made sure I didn't keep any of the clothes they gave me. I threw away all the paper, all the little stuff they give you, the little tokens, all the work you do. I didn't want to throw it away while I was in there, because while you're in there, you really want to show them you're making an effort so they don't hold you there, because they were, for some reason, certain doctors were really, it seemed like they were almost enjoying having the power to hold certain people there and to contest them leaving if they were displeased with the medical care they were receiving. And so just to be a part of the program, I didn't want to be throwing away all of the materials they were giving me and the crafts and the things we were working on. But I knew as soon as I walked out, before I even walked out the building, as soon as I walked out of the wing that's locked up, and as soon as I would get to the trash, and before I would see my dad, I'm throwing all this stuff away. I saw him, I hugged him, threw all the stuff away, and I went to his apartment, and I felt like the experience was so bad and traumatic. I felt like my hair was just a reflection of that. And maybe that wasn't true and all, but that's just how I felt. So I cut the wigs off. I just wanted to shed as much of myself and anything that looked like what had just happened or what I had just been through. I wanted to shed it. So I cut the wigs off, and I had a really short, curly fro, but you may see if you go to my personal channel. I had gained weight. I didn't have many clothes for some reason. Clothes that I couldn't seem to find clothes I could fit. For some reason, I didn't have shoes. I have shoes that I guess my feet had gained weight. I don't know, but they were too narrow. Some of the newer shoes I had. And I'm not, I don't usually have a ton of clothes anyway, but in the span of 3 months, April, May, June, July. The span of 5 months, about the end of August, I did not know how to make myself presentable. I did not know what to do with my hair. I did not know what clothes to put on. I didn't have a sense of visual aesthetics. I did not have a sense of, it almost just came down to making sure I just had something clean to put on. And so in September, when we get to the end of summer and I'm doing this video about aesthetics, even in artistic things, I didn't have a desire to read or write or to admire anything. It was just hard to connect with beauty. It was really hard to connect with beauty. In a way, I value being back outside after being locked in a building for 9 days straight, which I'm sure some people have experienced worse. But the idea of how we control materials and choose words and put things together and to reflect beauty, because we're made by a God who is beautiful and made things beautiful. He made the earth, he made the universe. And if you look at the video about beauty aesthetics, you'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Where I fit in that felt stripped away. And just the personal aesthetics is just one of them. It was never about my weight or anything like that. And I'm not talking about necessarily vanity or nice clothes. I'm talking about how we just make decisions to create beauty. Even in our hair, like my locks to me were beautiful. The wigs to me were beautiful. They were on a journey to becoming something beautiful. I just had to really, there are these tools you use to just keep the locks, like to instant lock it, so you don't just have to wait over time for them to form. And they were in the process, and I saw a goal of beauty. You know, I could think about the last time I wrote poetry and how there was an idea of a beautiful expression into that. And this is just me explaining how far away I felt from that. So then I record the video about aesthetics. And then I'm not even going to go into where I felt in my body when I recorded the video about kinetics, movements, the concept that we move, that the energy inside of us moves us, that the world is in motion, and that we engage in motion. I'm not even going to go into where I was when I did energy, how disconnected I felt at that point, talking about the end of winter in March. Just started to feel a lack of it all over again. And here we are in spring, at the end of spring, and though I am nowhere near where I was last summer, my health, my cycle for some reason in particular, like I've gained weight, I've been stress eating, and around my cycle, the hormones, whatever is happening, I've been experiencing like these depressive symptoms again. And they pull down. So right now, I have a piece of property through the Detroit Land Bank program that I really have to give back to them, because the original plan is just not playing out. I got it a couple years ago, and I've spent the majority of these past couple years just fighting for my sanity, fighting for a basic functional day-to-day life. And so it's been hard because it does not seem to match what God showed me. And I did not cultivate the conversations around this page that I originally wanted to, I originally saw. And yet, and still I believe and know confidently in my spirit that this came from him. And these are conversations that still will take place. And their meaning is because it's beyond me. We're talking about God, his divine purposes, his meaning, his word, his truth, his light, him reaching out to us to engage us and wanting us to engage each other as we engage him. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than these YouTube videos. It's bigger than however my year went. But I wanted to share that. So that's the Raquel vision. This is the end of spring 2025. And I don't know what's next, but I know God is not finished. That the God who made all these things and made us to remember him and to use remembrance to live in him and to live out this experience, to use our intellect, the God who gave us intellect, the God of beauty, the God of movement, the God of all energy, the God of this earth and the land, the God of all of this is not finished with me. He's not finished with this vision. He's not finished with what's next. And I look forward to knowing that. I look forward to whatever it is he's going to do next, even though I don't know what it is. And I hope that this next year, if I'm blessed to see it, that this would be a turning point. Because a part of me just hasn't wanted to do these videos at all, to be honest. After the first one, pretty much AKE, and today I because I feel so far from them. The land that I have, that he gave me, the way I got it was really him, that I may potentially be no longer have it. The ideas seem out of reach. Just, I feel disconnected from the land. I don't know what place I can go to that makes sense. I walk more. So technically I've been closer to it physically than I was when I had a car. So a lot of walking, but this is his land and it's ours, and we're supposed to govern it as he gave it to us to govern. And he's not done. So thank you for, if you've seen this, if you watched all of them, leave a comment. This is not at all what I thought it would be. But I wanted to be obedient and follow through it in any ways, no matter what I was going through. So here it is. To God be all the glory. Thank you.